Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis, going out to Jack Roberts. I thank you for requesting this fight. So let's get into it. This is a fight between two rising stars, two talented rising stars. And I'm thinking this fight takes place at lightweight, although Tank is at 140. Both of these guys are talented. Both of these guys have star power. And both of these guys have solid fan bases. Both of these guys have critics, but there's no way around that. When you're at the top, when you're aspiring to be great, when you're aspiring to be the best, you're going to have critics. You're going to have haters. You won't please them all. It doesn't take away from your talent. It doesn't take away the star power. So Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia at lightweight. Let's start off with Ryan Garcia. He's tall for his weight class. He's a big guy for his weight class, which gives him a lot of advantages against any of the fighters in his weight class. But the question is, can he take advantage of his height? Can he use his height? Ryan Garcia is underrated. He gets a lot of flack, but like I said, he wants to smoke. I think he's a great fighter. Of course, he's going to get better the more he fights and the more active he stays, at least 2 fights a year. I think he's going to be in good shape. He likes to mix it up. He punches hard. He throws great combinations. And he's explosive. Ryan Garcia is explosive. The same with Tank. He's explosive too. Tank has great power. He lives up to the name, Tank Davis. He has a southpaw advantage in this. I don't know how much of an advantage it is, but it's always somewhat an advantage the way that I see it. And if Tank can get close enough, if he can go to the body, if he can see if he sees an opening and can capitalize on that opening, I think he has a good chance in this fight. But the question is, can he get close enough to do damage? Like I said before, can Ryan Garcia take advantage of his height, keep Tank away, create some distance between him and Tank, back Tank up? So this is a great fight. It's not the easiest one to analyze because both of these guys are equally good, in my opinion. I think it just comes down to who wants it more. I think it comes down to who can get off first, who can fire their shots first. And just being on the outside looking in, it seems like they have equal power. Tank may have the edge in power, especially being at 140 now. So like I said about Tank, if he can get close enough, create openings, and just shoot one of his straight left shots, I think he has a chance in this fight. I'm not sure how good Garcia's chin is. So I'm not sure if this fight would necessarily come down to chins, but it's something to think about. It is definitely something to think about. So these guys are equally talented. They just are. So it comes down to who wants it more, who can get off first, and who's better prepared. Both of these guys have to be prepared for this fight in tip-top condition, mentally and physically. So who wins? Who wins? What do you think? Who wins this fight? And I'm going to lean towards Ryan Garcia because of his height, because of his long arms. And like I said, I don't think he gets enough credit. He's a good fighter. He's a dangerous fighter. And just being that tall, being that long, and hitting as hard as he does, I think Tank will have some trouble. I think Tank will have some trouble getting close and getting off his shots. So I think that size wins this fight. So I'm going to go with Ryan Garcia by late knockout. Let me know what you think. Fans, I have a bone to pick. Some of the things that I'm hearing is mind-boggling. It really is. I know I go on and on about the undefeated obsession, fighters being inactive, so on and so forth. How boxing today compares or pales in comparison to boxing from back in the past. But there's just some things that have to be said. I don't necessarily claim to be the authority on boxing. I certainly don't know everything. And this video is not intended to be condescending, but there's just some things that have to be said. There's just some things that have to be called out. And there's just some things that have to be challenged. Everyone's entitled to their opinions within reason. I'm not saying that you have to like every fighter. I'm not saying that you have to praise every fighter or be a fan of every fighter, but within reason, at least be reasonable. And this undefeated obsession has gotten out of control. It has gotten to the point to where now fans are reaching back in the past and discrediting fighters like Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis because they have losses on their records. I was on a forum yesterday and I almost blew a gasket. Because these guys were talking about, well, if Holyfield is so great, why did he lose to Michael Moore, Riddick Bowe, and why should he be credited for fighting a past his prime George Foreman and all this other crazy stuff? So it's gotten that it's like a disease. It's like a virus in the sport. Now, I understand new fans and these young guys talking this nonsense, but these seem to be guys that were watching boxing back in the golden era, back in the 90s, the early 2000s, when I was watching boxing. I started watching boxing in 89, all through the 90s, early 2000s, up until now. So the 90s and the early 2000s was the best years that I remember, or in my lifetime. Now, of course, we have the technology to go back and watch the fights of the 70s, 80s, 60s, and those earlier years. But as I said before, I don't mean to come across as a know-it-all or condescending, but some statements makes me question how much of a boxing fan some of these people are and how closely they follow the sport, because some of the things that are coming out of these fans' mouths, I'm telling you, it's madness. It's madness. And if we keep letting these people have their way, if we keep allowing people to talk this foolishness and not challenge them, then the sport is headed for a ditch. It really is. And the reason we're not seeing the fights that we want to see is because of these foolish people clowning fighters for taking losses. When is it going to stop? When is cooler heads going to prevail? When is fans like me, true fans of the sport, going to speak up and speak out and stop being politically correct and put these guys who don't know anything about the sport in their freaking place? When is it going to stop? People get mad at me for pointing it out. Why are you mad at me? I'm advocating for the sport. I'm advocating for the fighters. But these fans are ruining the sport because of their ignorance. And I'm sick of it. And if you're a true fan of the sport, you should be sick of it too. Don't let me be the only one calling it out. You call it out too. Please call it out. So you're so obsessed with this undefeated record that you will reach back in the past and discredit what these legends have done to lay the foundation for these new fighters that you worship, that can sit around for a year or two and not fight and still be relevant. Those guys were in the ring all the time. Now I know that there's more money to be made, which I'm okay with. I know that you don't have to take as much damage as you did back then to get a nice payday, which I'm definitely okay with. But there needs to be a balance somewhere. There really does. It can't just be all money because you have fans to consider. Legacy at some point has to come back to the sport. I don't care if a fighter has losses on their records, because what I look for is, were they competitive? Did they face a quality opponent? So you can lose and have the best performance. That record is just numbers. It's just freaking numbers. Now, I'm not suggesting that you lose on purpose. If you get in there and you fight the best and you keep coming out on top, more power to you. But for us to be praising fighters who are avoiding big challenges simply to preserve that stupid O, then there's a problem. There is a problem. And this is not what this great sport was built upon. This great sport was built upon people putting their hearts and their skills on the line against the best. Who cares about a stinking O when you're barely fighting and your quality of opposition is mediocre? That stupid O doesn't mean anything. And I so wish these fighters was watching this video. And I want as much of these crazy fans as possible to watch this video. You are killing the sport with your ignorance. And I wish that you would just shut up, sit back, and learn something, because you're killing me. When you're getting to the point to where you're discrediting fighters like Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis for taking a few losses. I mean, doggone it, Lennox Lewis only has 2 losses, which he avenged. You win some, you lose some. You come back, you get better. That's what the sport is all about. Comeback stories. Falling down and getting back up. Not sitting on the sidelines because you're scared to lose. That's stupid. That's stupid. Oh my goodness. Whew, why do I let these people get to me? Why do I? I try to be as positive as possible, but I'm so sick of listening to this foolishness. And if you are a true fan of the sport, you should be sick of it too. So that's my rant, for whatever it's worth.